Well, a hearty shalom to all of you. Jeffrey Seif here, coming to you from my study in Dallas, Texas. Last week I was walking around Harvard and I was holding the camera and wanted to get John Harvard behind me, reminded as I was that institutions are founded by individuals. And, we remember the United States of America and the individuals who forged it, foremost among them George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, individuals that are known to have, led in the struggle against the prevailing darkness. And movements, similarly, like institutions, are founded by individuals, not just ideas. Well, we're here in the Bible and we're following through in the life of an individual named Abram. He is the quintessential faith walker. And last week I was walking around Harvard, reminded of, John Harvard's journey and what he accomplished through it. But Abraham, the more so, his journey and what he accomplished through it. Well, as we pick up this week in chapters 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, we encounter a number of stories. In the 18th chapter, Abraham particularly is known for his hospitality. He's willing to give away the farm to these messengers that come to him. And, it's interesting that in the book of Hebrews, the author says, do not neglect to show hospitality, for by so doing, some have entertained strange angels unawares. And that's exactly what happens here. We can see it runs in the family because after those messengers leave Abram, they then go to Lot. And Lot is minded to show hospitality too, but it's rather queer in the sense that he gives quarter to these men, only to then discover later that the townspeople surround the house. And in order to stave off any sexual assaults against the men, he puts forth his daughters as candidates to perhaps, attend to their carnal appetites. Now, to me, that's disgusting. While I do appreciate hospitality, I think offering up your daughters to satisfy unholy lusts, to me, is indeed problematic. I don't even know what to do with all that, but I do see a contrast here. Abraham, by the way, has friends to stand with him when he's in trouble. Hundreds, in fact, are going to go after to rescue Lot when Lot is when Lot was carried away previously. But Lot doesn't have anybody to stand with him. He has to offer up girls, his own daughters. It's a weird world. And I'm glad I'm not living in it right now for a variety of reasons, though some have argued that the world we're living in right now is increasingly like this world, with sexual debauchery being so ubiquitous. Gone are the moorings that Judeo-Christian ethics are known for in a world where when it comes to sexuality, anything goes. Well, it goes up in smoke is where it goes in the chapter here. In the 18th chapter, the 19th chapter, Sodom and Gomorrah utterly destroyed, and Lot is left a vagabond. Now, what's interesting, when you look at Lot, his misfortunes are so well noted in the text. He accompanied Abraham and enjoyed blessings of association, so much so that they needed to split up, and Abraham deferred to him because Lot had lots of gold, silver, livestock, whatever, and he was a blessed man, but he comes to ruin. He's nothing. He flees for his life, and his wife's dead. His daughters don't have any dowry. There's nothing for them, and they're going to incest their father. They're going to get him drunk and then have sexual relations. I mean, it is just horrible. Sometimes you read the Bible's called good news, and I don't want to take away the good news, but sometimes what makes the good news so good is the fact that the bad news is so bad. Well, we see what happens here. Lot comes to an inglorious end with his family, quite frankly, but with the blessing of God, Abraham continues on. Sarah, who's been waiting the longest to have a child, gives birth. And we get to one of the more famous chapters then in the 22nd chapter of Genesis. Jews call it the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, and see in it a very interesting typology. Here's Abraham, the father, who has a miracle-born son his wife couldn't conceive. And there he's beckoned to offer up his son on the hill. And his son is carrying the wood, that which he's going to be executed on, in effect, up the hill, and the father is about to plunge the dagger in his breast, and then the Lord says, wait. What a story there. You know that it's going to be sometime later when God the Father is going to have his son march up the hill, perhaps the same hill, carrying the wood of his own execution that he's going to be. But then when he's nailed, there isn't an angel to say stop. And some have seen in the story of Isaac that there's a father who so loved the Lord that he gave up his only son, and his only miracle-born son, in fact. And some have seen in that something of an analogy to God the Father who so loved the world that he gave up his only miracle-born son. And it's really a fascinating story. And it's a story of faith alive, though it seems a little weird. There are a number of things that that can potentially offend the sensibilities of moderns when they enter into the ancient word. I get that. But what do we learn from it? Well, I'm reading from the brick, is what we affectionately call it here at the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Society. There are a number of biblical texts that you can visit online and you can acquire, and I hope you do that and share the link and tell your friends, because we want to support this Bible Society that's all about looking at the news through the eyes of the Jews. We have a translation that was tendered by Jewish scholars, and here I'm just representing a community of believers. And what do I want to tell you as we get in and out of this week's Torah reading? Well, first of all, thanks for coming in. Thanks for joining me on the journey. And I would hope, by the way, that you would read the Torah readings for yourself and see what the Lord would say to you. As we come to a close here, what's most pronounced to my thinking is that faith is something of a journey. It's not just a set of, doctrinal convictions, but faith prompts people to act and do things sometimes that are counterintuitive, whether it's Abraham being tested with the offering up of his son, whether it's him being tested by what to do with family intrigue with Lot, and what have you. There's movement involved in it. Faith is lived out there in the world. It's not just lived in synagogue and churches with amens to preachers, hooping and hollering. That as people deal with the affairs of life, they want to get the mind of the Lord and act accordingly. And I hope that means you. We're early on in a new Jewish year, a new year, and I would hope that you would dedicate yourself this year. Take a year, follow us through a Bible read. Read this week's parasha, Genesis 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Read it, digest it, come back to me together again. We'll look at the next section and the next and the next and see how your life might be transformed by a year going into and walking through the Bible. Well, Jeffrey Seif here. Thank you for joining me, and many blessings to you in Yeshua's name.